Have you ever wondered when you should be countercharging and when you should be bracing your units for impact? In this video, we'll cover the basic mechanics of charge bonus and bracing and determine when each should be used in various situations. We'll also do a bit of testing to actually see the differences they make on the battlefield. Charge bonus is a bonus to melee attack and weapon damage that fades out over the course of 15 seconds after base contact. It should be noted that the charge bonus does not affect armor-piercing damage and only affects melee attack and weapon damage. In order to get the full charge bonus, the unit must have been able to reach nearly full speed before impact. Bracing is the act of letting your infantry line take the charge of the oncoming enemy. The main benefit of bracing is the increase in mass, making the unit more difficult to push through. There will always be situations where countercharging will be better than bracing, and vice versa. If an infantry unit is being charged by enemy infantry, countercharging will more than likely be your better option. When countercharging enemy infantry, you will need to make sure you start their countercharge early enough to where they can gain enough momentum to fully activate the charge bonus. Otherwise, the countercharge would have been wasted. Now, if you'll look, in order to try to control the situation as much as we can, we use orc boys for both sides. When we compare the two scenarios, we can see that the enemy had more kills than us due to only them having the charge bonus, versus when we countercharged, which is the more even battle. This is why you almost always want to countercharge when it's infantry versus infantry, unless your infantry has charge defense against all. If your infantry is being charged by cav or monstrous units, you'll want to brace and make sure your infantry lines are in a more thick formation, because if they are in a thin formation, the cav or monstrous units are more likely to fully smash through the infantry line, which is what you don't want. This is why, when we place anti-large infantry on our flanks, we always try to put them in a more thick formation so that they can absorb the impact of the enemy cav attempting to flank. There is an exception for having a unit always brace, and that is when the unit has the trait charge defense against all. This means when the unit is braced, they will completely negate the charge bonus of all incoming enemies, being infantry, cav, monstrous units. However, the impact damage will remain unaffected. Now we can look at the comparisons. For the comparison, we will only compare the time it takes until the unit routes. As you can see, it takes slightly longer for the thicker formation to rout compared to the thin formation. If we were to use anti-large or a sturdier unit than the Empire Swordsman, these differences would be even larger. Here you'll see we do a brace versus countercharge scenario. Obviously, we shouldn't be countercharging cav, but just for testing purposes, I will show these differences as well. Now we can see the comparisons of bracing the cav charge versus countercharging the cav charge. So you'll see that even though our units got their charge bonus off, they routed much more quickly, resulting in them doing the same amount of damage as if they were just to brace the charge, showing that it is better for your units to brace cav charges so that they last longer in their engagements. Lastly, we will show comparisons of bracing monstrous unit charges and countercharging them. These differences are pretty much the same as the cav comparisons, but vary due to unit cost differences. And we see that the differences are pretty much the same, showing it is better for your units to brace the monstrous unit charge so that they can last longer in their engagement. So basically, to summarize the video, whenever we do infantry versus infantry, we'll be countercharging, infantry versus cav will be bracing, and infantry versus monstrous units will brace as well. We'll always want thick formations over thin formations whenever absorbing cavalry charges. That's all we have for today. If you found this video helpful, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment below. Also, subscribe if you haven't already.